So I've been wanting to make videos about Splatoon for a while, but until now, I was never really sure what I wanted to do. I really like thinking and talking about gameplay tactics, but I just figured there were probably way more qualified people out there to get advice from, and there was nothing I knew that anyone needed to hear. So I just kept the idea in the back of my mind and drafted scripts occasionally. But then I was looking through the comments under some random video about Splatoon 3's Anarchy battles, and there was one comment that stood out to me, enough to really make me think about how other people approach their performance in matches. It basically said that you shouldn't blame your teammates when you're on a losing streak, because they're probably not the issue. The only thing all your losing teams have in common is you. And I appreciate the sentiment of trying to discourage toxicity towards other players. However, I can't say that I agree with the actual logic behind it. Splatoon is a team sport. Whether you win or lose, everyone on the team should have made some contribution to the outcome. You wouldn't point to another player and accuse them alone of making you lose, right? Well then you shouldn't be doing that to yourself either. As the title of this video says, it's not your fault. Not entirely, anyway. So before I get into the subject matter, let me tell you where I'm coming from. I've kept up with the Splatoon series for a while now, but I only started actually playing last year when I bought Splatoon 3. Since then, I've played for at least an hour every single day, with only one or two exceptions. I admit I'm a bit of an addict. Currently, I'm rank S+1, level 116. So yeah, I have plenty of experience, enough to have at least some idea of what I'm talking about. And if any of you out there struggle with Splatoon or would just like to get better, I hope my advice will be useful to you. So when I say it's not always your fault when you lose a match, or even several matches, I do mean that. And if you keep on playing and improving, eventually you will reach that magical moment where you do really well, with like 19 kills and 3 deaths. And yet, you still lose horribly, because you're literally just one person who can't be all over the map at the same time, and your teammates are busy being dead when they're supposed to be helping you. It happens, it has happened, and it will continue to happen. I assume because Splatoon 3's matchmaking is not that good. Not everyone on your team will know what they're doing. There will even be times when it seems no one on your team knows what they're doing, and it isn't fair for anyone to expect you to just magically become capable of winning a 4v1 in those instances. But what should you be capable of doing in those moments? How do you get out of a hopeless situation where things are going from bad to worse and there's no one person on your team who can swoop in to save the day? There's no easy answer, especially not one that's guaranteed to work every time. But the best thing you can do in a spot like that is strategize. You know, think a little further than simply swimming forward until you run into an enemy. You have to try to create helpful situations for your allies and create harmful situations for your opponents. And in this video, I'm going to go through a few ways to make that happen. Number 1. Know your weapon. Most veteran Splatoon players are good with multiple weapons, but for us casuals, I think it's enough to just have a signature weapon you know you can win with, at least for level grinding purposes. If you're picking weapons at random and wondering why you're having trouble leveling up, that's probably a huge reason why. You need to form a predictable base strategy that you can refine, and that starts with becoming intimately familiar with the strengths and weaknesses of your favorite weapon. Now, call me basic, but I prefer shooters. My signature weapon is the NZAP 89, which has decent range and a high firing rate. This makes it great for maintaining distance from enemies, so you can start softening them up for the kill before they can even get close enough to hit you. You can easily play support with this weapon, following the frontline players and helping them secure kills. When I first started out, I regularly won the #1 Splat Assist medal. However, as a shooter, there will come a time when you are forced to take the front lines yourself, so you really need to improve your aim and learn evasive skills, so you can stay alive long enough to get kills on your own. The NZAPs are not powerful weapons. You won't be successful with them unless you can make the most of them and strike when it counts. Now, all this is stuff I know from experience, and if you have a signature weapon, you should strive to get to a point where you know at least that much about how it can be used. You don't play a charger or a roller the same way you play a shooter. Heck, even a different shooter, like the Splash-O-Matic for instance, will be played differently from the NZAP. This is honestly the most basic concept of the game, learning the strengths and weaknesses of different weapons, and using that information to improve your combat. Number 2. Don't be afraid to die. Now that we're over the basics, it's time to get into some real strategy. And this is one of the first ones I learned as a new player, how to make your deaths count. We all know that dying in Splatoon doesn't mean you die in real life. but certain players seem to act as if it does, which can make for some real frustrating matches. There are only a few weapon classes where staying out of the enemy's reach should be a core part of your strategy, and even then, if you're not keeping up with the movement of the battle, then you're not actually helping your team, you're just hiding from the fight. Now, I'm not saying that you should always dive into harm's way no matter what, but sometimes you do need to dive in, and you need to do it with a plan. For example, let's say you're playing Turf War and it's the worst case scenario. The enemy team is huddled around your spawn point, immediately ganging up on any player who tries to advance. You're trapped, and clearly trying to fight them off isn't working. In this situation, I like to use a tactic I call the suicide run. You literally just take the first chance you get to break through the enemy lines and run like hell. On rare occasions, if you manage to flank the enemy and sneak past them, you can start inking their turf before they catch you. An overconfident team might not even notice until your allies start jumping over to you. However, most of the time they will chase you down immediately and kill you in seconds. But that's okay, because you know what they're not doing while they're busy killing you. They're not killing your allies, and they're not paying attention to them, giving your team a chance to get them while their backs are turned. And the longer you manage to survive while you perform this suicide run, the better the chance. Now, if they don't take that chance, that's not your fault. You can try signaling to get their attention before you die, but if they're not willing or not capable of taking advantage of the situation, then that's just how it is. However, if there's at least one other competent player on the team, they will most likely jump at the opportunity to kill your opponents while they're distracted, or at least charge forward and further mess up the enemy formation. One enemy dies, the others get separated a little, and before long, your team has an opening to advance and finally start to take back some territory. All because you died in the right place at the right time. Number 3. Look out for your friends. Now by this, I don't just mean to watch your allies' signals and warn them about nearby enemies, although those are both good things to do. But if you want to give your team some real synergy and a better chance to win, you need to coordinate your moves with them, using your strengths to cover their weaknesses. More specifically, when they try to accomplish something, you need to realize what it is, and do everything in your power to make sure they succeed. For example, when an ally is struggling to escape an opponent, ink under their feet so they can hide, reload, or just swim away faster. And when an opponent is trying to escape your allies, ink under their feet to slow their movements and help damage them. To give a more detailed example, let's say you're playing Rainmaker, and someone on your team manages to grab it after you've popped the barrier. But instead of moving forward towards the next checkpoint, they're staying mostly stationary, charging and shooting at the enemy team. Now, hopefully you know this, but in case you don't, a Rainmaker is a terrible weapon for trying to clear enemies. It works best when used to support frontline players who are already harassing those enemies. So why would someone choose to shoot instead of run? Either A, they're relatively new to the game mode and don't really understand its priorities yet, or B, they feel threatened by nearby enemies and they're trying to defend themselves. And as one of the people on your team who is not holding the Rainmaker, this should be unacceptable to you. It is your responsibility to get in there and defend them, chase enemies away from them, and ink a clear path forward for them. You know, so they aren't forced to try to do all that themselves with their extremely slow, inefficient weapon. This concept is briefly explained in the in-game rules that you can access from the match menu, because it's literally the whole point of the game mode. By creating a situation where one member of your team has a target on their back that also severely limits their abilities, the game is trying to teach you the importance of looking after your teammates and guiding them to victory. If you don't care about the person holding the Rainmaker, you usually don't win. This may all seem like obvious common sense, but I know from experience that there are plenty of people who don't truly understand this, whether they're in Rainmaker or any other mode. They're used to playing by themselves and for themselves, hanging back where they're comfortable or getting into petty standoffs with enemies, all the while ignoring the larger objective. The saddest part is that many of them will continue to play like this even when their team is losing, and the other team is just running the clock, taking advantage of an easily distracted opponent to secure a win. Which is actually a very smart tactic that I may address in a future video. Anyway, if you want to start contributing to victories and stop contributing to defeats, you can begin by not being this person. Pay attention to what your teammates are doing and help them, especially when your team isn't doing well. More often than not, they have ideas and beneficial skills that could turn the tide of battle, but they just need a little assistance in actually using them. After all, there are few things more frustrating than losing a battle you could have won, if only someone had your back every once in a while. Number 4. Assassination. This is the most advanced tactic on this list, but if you're a newbie and you want to give it a try anyway, I encourage you to do so. You'll probably get wrecked, but you may learn something. Anyway, sometimes it feels like there's just one specific player on the other team who's making things impossible for you. A particularly skilled charger or dual user, for instance, who seems to effortlessly destroy everyone who approaches them. Your first instinct may be to hang back and stay away from them whenever you can, but sometimes your best option is actually to single them out and take them down, especially if you feel that you're the member of your team most capable of doing so. Like I said, you need to make up for your teammates' weaknesses with your own strengths, and sometimes that means taking on an enemy that only you are fast enough or powerful enough to handle. It is easier said than done, but I'm going to walk you through some basic strategies to help you assassinate a duelie or a charger if you're brave enough to try. The core of both of these strategies is to use cover, something that almost no one does in this game for some reason, even though it's sort of a basic principle of gunfighting as a whole. Look up any realistic gunfight scene in any movie or TV show. You will see the combatants running for cover, hiding behind cover, or using creative methods to make cover. You will also see them compromising or destroying their opponent's cover in order to draw them out. The importance of having literally anything around to shield you from gunfire is made pretty obvious. I think the reason people overlook this in Splatoon is because movement is more highly emphasized and rewarded as part of the gameplay, which isn't a bad thing. It's one of the elements that sets it apart from other third-person shooters. But as a result, players will usually weave in and out from behind cover, rather than actually keeping it between themselves and their enemies, even though doing so might be the better tactic in some cases. Let's start with using cover against dualies. The point is to evade their dodge rolls and waste their ink, waiting until they've used most of it up before striking back. This works best when you hide behind an isolated piece of cover that you can move around in circles, which encourages the opponent to keep dodge rolling left and right to try to get you. Eventually, they will realize this isn't working, and if they're smart, they'll stop dodge rolling and try to retreat. Since they're no longer moving quickly, this is a perfect opportunity for you or an ally to strike them down. On the other hand, they may try to climb over the cover or otherwise close the distance to intimidate you. If you're ready, stand your ground and light them up. Otherwise, use your cover strategically to move away one last time, and then go for the kill. P.S. A few well-thrown bombs or other sub-weapons can do wonders to help make this strategy work, especially if you can't count on an ally to assist you. Now, let's discuss using cover against chargers. This can be a lot more difficult, since they tend to stay on high platforms out in the open, surrounded by allies to run interference for them. There's a good chance they will see you coming, or someone will distract you long enough for them to target you. So this strategy really works best when you have some other allies on the field to at least act as additional targets. I wouldn't recommend trying it alone. So basically, your goal is to get very close to the platform the charger is standing on, sidling right up to it so they can't reach you, at least not without aiming straight down and completely turning away from all the other players. Start by using cover to advance. Find your next shield, dash over to it, and patiently wait until it's safe to continue forward. If the charger spots you coming and aims for you, stay behind cover and wait them out. If the rest of your team isn't totally incompetent, they will quickly find something else to pay attention to as your allies continue fighting normally. Once the charger moves on, you can move on. Just treat it like a stealth mission. When you finally manage to get close to their platform, they will probably notice and try to leave. That's your chance to strike, or at least chase them back so your team can advance without fear of getting sniped. Be very aggressive, and don't back down if they try to ward you off with uncharged shots. Now on the other hand, if they don't notice that you're there, and you can ink the wall of the platform, go ahead and climb up to surprise attack them. Just monitor their shots, and try to time it so you pop up in front of them before they're fully charged. Or, if you have the opportunity, make your way around the platform so you can ambush them from behind. Again, be aggressive, go straight for the kill, and if you can't get it, harass them as much as you can before they escape. Part of this strategy is psyching them out, making them feel unsafe about returning to their platform. This will give your allies a larger window of time to advance before the charger gets back into position. And in some cases, it will ruin them for the rest of the game, spurring them to start valuing safety or revenge over finding the best vantage point. There have been quite a few instances where I assassinated a charger like this just one time, and then went the rest of the match without having trouble with them again. Now, none of these strategies are foolproof. Again, there will be times when your teammates either don't realize or don't care about what you're doing when you try to give them an opening. And there will be times when the enemy team is just too fast or too efficient to let you get away with these maneuvers. Just try to sneak up on a charger when they have a dedicated guardian who is specifically watching out for assassins like you. Just because you know what it takes to win and you're doing everything in your power to get there doesn't necessarily mean you're entitled to victory. But victory isn't the whole point. I mean, you should try to win and want to win. I always do. And if I thought someone on my team was purposely trying to throw the match, I might be compelled to crawl through the screen and kill them in real life. However, there's one thing I like better than victory, and that's a good game. You know, that heart-pounding non-stop energy, the feeling that every player is doing everything they can to succeed, and that you can't afford to give up or look away because the tide could turn at any moment. When you're playing a match like that, it doesn't matter as much whether you win or lose, because the experience itself is a fun challenge. It's unpredictable, it makes you feel like the outcome isn't set in stone, and because of that, your actions and your skills actually matter. That's why my approach to strategy isn't necessarily to win, but to simply make winning possible. To provide opportunities that could eventually grow into a win, or at least the chance for your team to put up a decent fight. So, if you do end up losing the match, at least you can lose with your dignity still intact. Thanks so much for watching, like, subscribe, whatever, and check out my Coffee page gallery to see the finished pictures in these videos. If you're a Splatoon player and you try out any of these strategies, let me know how it went down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Stay fresh out there.